do our town manager report.
Fantastic. I just want to start by giving a shout out to our highway department for their hard work over the last 48 hours, clearing over 18 inches of snow. Tyngsborough, if you haven't heard, did earn the jackpot in terms of the #1 accumulation in Massachusetts, with I think 18.2 was the National Weather Service's count.
Power outages.
True. The challenging part of the storm is that it came in multiple waves. We started early the night before, and so it was a multiple days for the highway department. So kudos to them. The roads were down to pavement on almost all of the roads this morning before the commute. So well done. And of course, thank you to Chief Russell, who serves as our emergency management director, and the fire department. They very quickly opened a shelter because, as Mr. Moran pointed out, at one point more than 70% of town was without power. So in the cold temperatures, that was helpful. As of 4 o'clock, all but I think 25 isolated outages had been repaired. And I know National Grid has several crews in town working to address those issues. And I know I saw before the meeting that the fire department responded to 30 calls for service in 24 hours during that storm. So obviously our police and fire were extremely busy, and we're appreciative to them as well. The fiscal year 2025 budget planning is in full swing. We've been working with the finance department to review budget requests, which were due on December 21st. We've been refining them and identifying areas for potential cost savings. We have a couple more meetings with department heads next week, and we'll plan to present a first pass balanced budget at your meeting on January 29th. It's important to note that while the school committee works through their budget process, we've been using a placeholder of a 2.7% increase, which is what we've agreed to with the school department relative to our $1 million contribution for the middle school debt. Nothing new in the budget. If possible, a priority of mine is to finally increase the part-time IT support specialist from part-time to full-time. Obviously, if it's not possible in this fiscal year, that will be cut, but I'm really hoping we're seeing an increased demand for IT services. They provide services to every single one of our departments with the exception of school. Our liability in terms of cyber is much higher, so having those two people in a full-time capacity is important. On the budget front, we're closely monitoring things at the state level, where this weekend we learned that revenues are so far behind projections that just before the meeting, actually, the Healy administration released their list of 7 C cuts, which are cuts that they can unilaterally make. It's still very high level, so if you look at that list that the state put out, it shows the funding categories. Almost all of them are earmarks as it relates to what we may be impacted with. There are some grant programs, like the Regional Health Grant Program was listed. At this point, all of our money is in contract for fiscal 24, so I'm hoping that that won't impact us. We do have a $100,000 earmark for economic development, which we have a contract with the state for, but again, these 7 C cuts can be unilaterally approved by the governor. And I was notified late last week that we got a $50,000 earmark for EV infrastructure at the police department. That announcement just came through, so I'm fairly certain that will be taken back. But they haven't said who's suffering the cuts yet. They've released their initial list, and of course our biggest concern is what that means for state aid in fiscal 25. And relative to the Fair Share Amendment, one of the things that we'll be sure to mention at our tri-board meeting with the legislators is we don't want to see the state say, well, you're getting this $250 now from the Fair Share Amendment, we'll lean back on what we're giving you in Chapter 90. They may see that as a net equal for the town, but certainly it's not to the whole board's point. We're not getting enough money on that front. So it's still early. When we learn more, we will share some information. Last week, we released a request for services for design services on the new DPW building. Responses are due by January 31st, and our goal is to have the design and construction documents complete by the end of March so that we can go out to bid in early spring. Chief Russell, in his capacity as the Emergency Management Director, is working with staff from the fire department to put together a community emergency response team, which is a volunteer group of residents who can be mobilized to assist with emergency response in the event of a natural disaster or other large-scale emergency. The chief received a $5,000 grant to help get the program launched, and they're hosting information sessions for residents who are interested on January 24th and January 31st at 6 p.m. at the Old Town Hall. We'll have more information available on our website shortly. We are excited to announce, as was alluded to today in the sustainability presentation, a partnership with Black Earth Compost to offer drop-off compost bins at the highway department. These bins will be available 24/7 for use by Tyngsborough residents beginning on January 16th. We know from our waste characterization study that more than half of our waste is organic that could be composted. Not only is that the right thing to do, obviously, for the environment, but it will help us reduce our dramatically increasing trash costs. There'll be two 64-gallon bins at the highway department, right where the rest of the recycling center is. The bins will be collected weekly by Black Earth and hauled off to their commercial compost site. We'll only be accepting organic waste, and we've already worked with the Sustainability Committee to put together literature that we'll be distributing to residents. We've built out a page on our website for it, and we've got some graphics that we'll put on top of the bins and some signs around town to help people who maybe aren't familiar with what they can and can't compost learn what they can. Right now, we're using a grant from Republic Services to fund the project, and the advantage is that it will also increase our eligibility for future recycling dividends program funds. So it's a win-win for everybody. The bins have actually already arrived. We're working on getting the signage ready, so on the 16th, they'll be deployed for residents to use. Last month, we signed a 12-month agreement with Sprague Energy to competitively purchase our natural gas supply for public buildings in a similar manner to what we've done for electricity. The rate that we locked in is 10 cents per therm cheaper than the current national grid rate and is locked in until next December. They don't yet offer something as wide scale for residential aggregation, which is what we do for electricity, but given the increase in companies offering this type of service on a smaller level, I expect that sometime in the next year this will be an option as well. And with the price of heat and gas dramatically high, this is a huge win. I'll skip over the fair share amendment because that was already talked about extensively. We're excited to be working with the Collegiate Charter School of Lowell to place 2 high school seniors in accounting internships with our finance department. They'll be helping with budget prep, audit work, and much more. The town is once again, through support of the Sustainability Committee, collecting string lights here at Town Hall. Residents can bring their old or unwanted holiday string lights to the drop-off box located outside our main entrance now through January 31st. The box is available 24/7. These lights are considered tanglers and are not permitted in the trash stream because they tangle up and damage equipment. We previously acknowledged the Tyngsborough residents that supported residents with dropping yard waste off at our site. I also wanted to just recognize resident Tim Gonsalves, who helped residents get their yard waste to the new yard waste site. Just as a reminder, it's closed now. It's impassable because of the snow, but we will periodically consider reopening that site over the winter if weather permits. And our assistant town manager is not able to be here tonight, but I'll quickly run through her report. The town is seeking sealed bids for highway line painting. Bid documents are available last Wednesday and will be due no later than 10 a.m. on January 17th. This is an annual bid that we do. We ended up not using the contract last year. That contractor wouldn't honor their renewal price, so we had to go back out to bid. Asbestos abatement work should commence on the former Winslow School this month. We've met with Peer Consulting, which is the consultant that designed the abatement, Green Environmental, which is the contractor that won the award, and RFP Group, which is the environmental monitor that we're legally required to have on site for a pre-construction meeting. That took place last week. Their non-traditional work plan has been approved by the state, which is a huge step. And now we're just ironing out some final details about logistics. There's an underground storage tank that needs to be removed. So a little bit of coordination, but that project is moving forward. We are seeking design services to provide professional design and construction administration services for the pavilion at the new rec center located at 80 Pawtucket Boulevard. Those bid documents will be available this Wednesday and will be due no later than 12 p.m. on January 31st. That's a CPC project. FY24 capital funding update. As of today, 4 of the projects funded in fiscal year 24 are complete. Of those projects, 2 came in under budget. There are 8 projects that are currently in progress at this time, and many of which will be completed in the spring. On a green communities front, in working with our green communities consultant, Guardian Energy, to develop our spring green communities application, we also were made aware of an aggressive weatherization program that's largely funded by the utilities. So we have submitted an application for a $2,400 rebate on weatherization work. The town will end up having to spend just about $800 on it, but certainly it'll be worth it for cost savings, and again, will increase our eligibility for the Green Communities Program. One item that was not listed on here that I meant to add before your meeting, we did get the value engineering back on Bicentennial Field. Removing all of the nice to haves, but taking into consideration the dramatic cost increase in labor, our best estimates put us at the project cost being closer to $500,000, which is twice what we were originally planning for. I anticipate at Capital Assets next meeting, presenting them with a list of capital projects from fiscal year 23 and 24 that have come in under budget, that if both capital and the select board we're interested, we could use that funding to supplement it, and if the bids came in, say at $500,000, and the town was still interested, we could finish the project. The money that we've identified was not included in the estimates we provided to capital for funding that was available, because we've been presenting them what hasn't been appropriated. So these projects we know are complete. It can get us up to the $500,000 should both boards feel like that's appropriate. So I expect at your January 29th meeting, depending on how that presentation to capital goes, requesting for your feedback on whether or not it makes sense at that point. Disappointing. We've sent the value engineering to the two bidders on the project. It certainly does bring down the cost, but there are some areas that, no matter what we did to the value engineering, the cost today is just not supportive of it. That's all I have on the manager's report.